So welcome everyone. The event's called Building a 7-Figure Shopify Agency. We have Zlatko, Bijelic, and the Puzzle Group on here, and we're going to talk about all things building Shopify agencies today. So this event is hosted by Replo. So Replo is a visual web development platform that allows teams to create beautiful, high-performance landing pages on Shopify without the need for developers. Replo is light years ahead of other page builders when it comes to customization and page speed. We have a library of hundreds of proven landing pages and sections that anyone can use, as well as certified experts who can help build new pages in just a few days. I'm going to pass it around to the rest of the group for introductions. Z, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, I can take it. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. And it's awesome to be here. But yeah, so my name is Zlatko. I go by Z if it's easier for people to pronounce. I myself have been in the tech space for well over 10 years at this point. Different types of businesses, e-commerce, websites, building subscription businesses, all this other stuff. And about 5 years ago, I built an agency by the name of Taco Agency. We focus on Shopify primarily, and it was one of those things where Shopify was on the up and up for a couple of years at that time, and we built basically an entire full service agency around that. We grew from 3 people to 22 people last year, and we broke 7 figures last year. A lot of that I think also had to do. We didn't have the magic pill, but I think a lot of that also had to do with the pandemic and how people were shifting their businesses and all these other things. And I think I learned a lot through that process. I learned a lot through the process of building that agency from the beginning, the things I really didn't do well, the things I did do well. And yeah, it's been an uphill battle. And now I'm focusing on that. And I'm focusing also on building a bunch of SaaS products through another agency I started at the beginning of this year as well. So I'll leave it at that, and then I'll pass it on to you, Akruti and Viraj.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Akruti. Viraj is also on this call. We're both co-founders at Puzzle, which is the most powerful way to run your digital service business, whether that be website designing to branding to kind of anything. We started Puzzle because we were ex-design agency owners, and we were really frustrated with tools that seemed to be designed for us to spend as much time as possible on it, and didn't really get a lot of value out of it. Or jumbling together a bunch of free tools that took up a lot of our time. So we decided to quit our design agency and try finding a solution to having like seamless automated client onboarding, payments, task management, and just anything that you have to do for your creative service business that's not just creating. And we just recently came into beta just a few weeks ago, and we've been onboarding users. So definitely check it out. And if you'd want to get off the wait list, just message me.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. All right, let's kick things off here. So Z, why don't you tell us your story? Tell us a little bit about the journey and how you got started with your Shopify agencies.
Yeah, so one of the big things for me was I was doing a lot of PM work. So I'll take it back a little bit further, just so how I got into building my own agency. I had been doing some PM work for a few years prior to that. Had a couple consulting gigs. Those kind of ran its course, and I got to this point around 2015, 2016, where I had built a online store. It was a fully custom sock subscription service. So we would just literally, you subscribe, and you would get either 1, 2, or 3 pairs of socks sent to your doorstep every single month. They were super colorful, like dress type socks. We had male and female and all that stuff. And so that business had been running for probably a couple of years at that point. And 2015, 2016 came around, and the business just wasn't making enough money for me to basically survive, and it was just tough. And so I had started doing a lot more just simple PM work, and PM work, or project management, product management. I was mainly on the projects management side because I had no technical background, and so I started doing a lot of stuff on Upwork. Actually, I went and created a profile and just really was sitting in my 600 square foot apartment in LA. And I really wanted to get into helping other e-commerce agencies and any kind of web agencies really facilitate the work from client to developer and back and forth. It's what I really enjoy doing. Communication, all these things are really kind of part of my key toolbox, and being able to drive a project from beginning to end. So when I got to that point, I started shelling out 10 to 15 to 20 applications per day on Upwork, just trying to get a couple of jobs. And then finally the cycle started, got a few jobs, got a few reviews, my profile started getting better. Then I got hired by a couple of different agencies as their in-house project manager. And I just started to notice, right around like 2016, 2017, I started to notice that just a lot of like cracks in the system, really. And I think that's kind of probably how Puzzle came about. I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth, but when you go through something, you start to find little opportunities and things that are just not working for you, and they're not working for other people. And so when I was at these agencies, there were bigger agencies. They just had a lot of broken systems, but they were reeling in tons of money through clients and sales opportunities and all these other things. And it kind of had me mind blown, to be honest with you, because I was like, damn, if somebody with when you look at somebody with a broken system can do this, like imagine what I could do with like a good system. And so kind of did that through a couple of different agencies. And then at the end of 2017, I just kept going back to this original thought of like, what if I did my own thing? What if I did my own thing? So literally like a month later, it was January 2018. I went and registered a business, and I was like, I'm just going to go out and do this. I had a couple designer friends and project managers that were ready to help me out on a contractor basis. And I did not have a developer at the time. And so what ended up happening is that literally like the day after after I launched the business, we got a client, because I had pretty good deal flow coming through Upwork. We got a client for $30,000, like day one of the business, which is almost like unheard of, and from what I know. And I was like, damn, okay, but this is obviously like going to be a full project. We needed developers and all these other things. And my goal at that time was like, damn, I could kick off my business with 30,000. It's like almost like an upfront investment from somebody that I never have to pay back. That's how I looked at it. And I just basically told the person, I sold them on the project, sold them on working with us. But on the back end, I had no developer, like nobody ready to work on this project. So it was just like design and project management. And then from that point forward, we got everything done. I ended up having enough buffer between the design stage and the development stage to actually hire a developer. And so that's kind of how Taco kicked off. And from that point forward, just kept, partnering up with awesome other like tech partnerships within the Shopify ecosystem, other agencies who had some overflow work. And primarily a lot of our work came through Upwork, actually, because my profile had just been going kind of crazy on there for a long time. There wasn't a lot of people doing really good Shopify work. And so I just basically put my flag in the ground and just said, hey, this is all we're going to focus on, and sort of niche down just in doing that. So that was kind of the starting point of Taco Agency.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's an incredible story, and really, really awesome that you were able to find that first client like that so quickly. That's incredible. Tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges that you faced early on.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced early on was I had no idea how to hire like proper people. That was, I think, my worst nightmare. And I think the second part of that is the admin side of things. For the first year, my financial books were just an absolute nightmare because I was running 100 miles an hour. I just threw everything into like a QuickBooks thing, hoping that, one day I'll hire somebody, they can go in there and just clean up my mess. And so for me, that was those were probably the biggest things, because hiring is, at that time, working from home wasn't unknown, but it also wasn't like everyone's sort of like thing the way it is now. Now we prioritize working from home and remote work and all this other stuff. Prior to that, hiring people in different countries and different states and different cities, doesn't matter where they are. You just kind of had to build this relationship with people with, talking to them as much as possible. Slack at the time wasn't very big. Everything was either like Skype or Google Hangout. Like it was all these different tools that really didn't work too well of keeping sort of this like culture within a team and all these other things. So Slack was obviously a really, really big piece of the puzzle for us to kind of bring everyone under one roof and have this, more cohesive work experience. But I think hiring overall, just getting to, it's tough when you have so many projects going on at any given time, is that when you need people to just sort of jump into the fire, there's no time to go through 5 different interview sessions. Like you could jump on the phone, you see them, you talk to them, and you just go for, sort of a little bit of gut instinct or a lot of gut instinct. And then the other, if they can showcase some skills that kind of blow you out of the water. I started to look more for people that were proactive, people that were, go-getters, that wanted some ownership in terms of the project or whatever they were handling. So from that perspective, it was really, really interesting to go through that. I mean, our churn was really high at one point, where we would hire somebody one week, they just disappear, or they're working on 15 other projects and they just didn't have time, they didn't take it seriously, and we had to go back and hire somebody else. It just, the whole process was really, really kind of broken. So that was a really big challenge for me, is to just find the right people. And then when you actually do find somebody that kind of clips into what you're doing and shares that vision and understands where you're trying to go, almost even before where you want to go, I think that was a game changer for me, because I had a few of those people that I hired in the very beginning, and they're still here with us now as well. So I think that I would pinpoint that to be sort of the biggest challenge.
That's awesome. Maybe just going a little bit deeper on the hiring front. So do you run your teams remotely? And if so, what have you seen as to be the benefits or drawbacks on running a remote team, or are you all in person?
No, we've never had an office, and we will never have an office because I think nowadays, with all the different tools and ways of running a project, communication, you have the Looms, you have the Slacks, you have all these different things where you can do a lot more like async stuff. I think that gives our agency at least the ability to work efficiently and be on the same page without having to be, next to each other. So yeah, I definitely don't see, because we're deadline based, client says, we have a deadline, and we run up against that deadline. And then, we don't need to be, our developer today may be working on a project, that's completely different than what the PM is working on, and all these other things. So we don't really need to be on the, in the same room to get that done, because everyone's kind of doing their pieces of what needs to be handled at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I know you talked about the struggles that you had when kind of like first building the agency, but I know the struggles don't stop,
Yeah.
So what was like the most difficult thing to adapt to while you started growing your agency?
I think the biggest thing to adapt to was probably, this is going to be a little bit of a tough one. Adapting to really how people work and what their strong points are, and what, how you talk to them. I think it all kind of comes down to communication, and on both sides, your internal communication with your team and your external communication with clients, and how you bridge those gaps. I think adapting to really understanding people within your company and knowing what kind of ticks off their checklist, and as much as it is like company-based goals, there's also personal goals. I think people want to learn things, people want to grow within their own careers. I think also adapting to the fact that knowing from the time that you hire somebody, and if they're with you for a certain period of time, you also have to understand that they're not going to be here forever. So the shift between, oh man, I found somebody that I'm, now become friends with, and we consider each other like family, which I personally now think that that's probably not the best way of like running a team, is to be like, oh, we're a family. Because at the end of the day, you have to know that people outgrow things. People don't want to get stagnant, and it's in your best interest for somebody to go like, spread their own wings in a different way and go somewhere else and make a bigger impact, knowing that they came, from your business or your agency or whatever else it is. So adapting to a lot of change, especially with personnel, was really, really tough in the beginning, because it almost feels like, 6 months goes by so quickly because it can just be simply like one project. But from that project, from point A to like, point Z at the end, is like, you really get to see somebody, really change, really grow, all these other things. And then they may take on another project, and now that's like a year. And now they're like, hey, I think I've learned a lot here. I love this team and all this other stuff, but another opportunity has presented itself because I want to further myself, and just being able to like swallow that and just say, that's exactly what you should be doing. I think that was a really big thing for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think I really resonated with the idea of like, just know that they're not going to be here forever. I think like as a startup founder, one of the cool things that you always like are looking for in hiring is like, will this person in the future found their own company? Because then like you got the right person. And
Exactly.
I think that's like a good way to view it, I guess. So
Yeah.
I really resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think for me also, just realizing when you bring people into your wheelhouse, I started doing this probably about a year and a half in, is to sort of on that call when you're hiring them, or when you get to be a little bit more comfortable with them, being like, what are your goals? Like, what are you working on the side? Because I think nowadays you can assume that somebody always has something, either they're writing on the side, or they have a side hustle, whatever else it is. And I made it my point to actually go out, reach out to those people and just say, if there's anything I can help you with, like with your business or whatever else it is, like, let me help you propel that as well, not just feel like you're stuck working on what I'm working on, even though this may be paying your bills or whatever that might be. Like, let me almost like reciprocate that and just say, hey, whatever you need, and if there's any resources internally that you want to use, let's see how we can make that work. So I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, totally. Well, if you could go back to the days when you were still building up your agencies and you could change one thing, what would it be?
Documenting my process very early on. I think that that was the biggest like crutch in the system, or the wrench in the system, is to I was doing the sales, the marketing, the project management, the admin stuff. Like, I was doing everything because I had a little bit of like a control issue at that point. And I think for me, finding the time to sit down, put everything else to the side, all these like 7 other jobs that I had within my own company, and just say, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to write the process of how I run a project from, start to finish. That was really, really tough. Like, I would always get to that 60-70%, and then I put that document to the side and then just start on something else, or somebody would call me or email me or whatever that might be, and completely lose sight of what I was just like working on. And then when you onboard another project manager or whoever else it is, being able to simply hand them that document and say, here's like, if you can understand this, you'll know 95% of the stuff the way we do it. And then there'll be those like 5 to 10% of things that are, very project dependent. But if you're able to get this and understand this, I think that goes a long way. So I'm very big on sort of talking to people about that, especially like through my coaching business. I do a lot of coaching through for like early freelancers and agencies, and just entrepreneurs and startup businesses. And one of the things is like, when you're just doing anything, document it. Like, even if you have to record a voice note or you have to do something, document that process, because I guarantee you one day you're going to have to hire somebody to take that on, because you probably don't want to be doing that forever. Just simply having to give them a jump off point where they can say, oh, wow, okay, I had no idea about that. And you being in that moment, of doing that is very much the most effective thing you could probably do for your team in the future.
Love that. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you mentioned it kind of, you have like a coaching business and you're running 2 agencies, and you're also like a really awesome content creator. I believe you have a podcast and you post threads on Twitter. And I mean, first of all, how do you balance all of that? um, because I feel like you must be busy.
Yeah. So this is actually a question I get quite a bit from people, and I think what I've learned over the past probably few years at this point, probably at the kind of like middle of 2020 to leaping into mainly this year, is I early on I got really stuck in kind of the like I said, the cycle of just doing too many things, and I had a really bad burnout state of period in 2021 where I just kind of had to disconnect from the world for like 2 weeks and didn't have my phone, didn't have anything. And in that period, I really started to focus on the things that give me energy, and I needed to kind of make sure that I had the balance between the workload that I had and the fun workload that I wanted to create for myself. Stuff like podcasting, writing now. Like I started writing really, publishing stuff at the beginning of April of this year. I've always had this thing in my brain where it just feels like there's like a congestion of information, like there's just too much going on. And podcasting was a way for me to get that out. But I think as humans, I think we also have multiple ways of we need to do that. I think writing, if anybody, here or listening to this on YouTube or wherever it ends up, is thinking about ways that they need to basically distill their thoughts and put things out there. I think podcasts are a great way of doing that. But with a podcast, I think you're sort of more topic driven. With writing, you literally don't have any boundaries. And that to me was a really, really big thing. So when we talk about things like content creation and different things like that, that's just a way for me to share my experience from the day that I started, or from the year I started doing like anything as an entrepreneur, to what I'm doing now, and giving people things that have gotten me through different stages of that journey. Starting an agency, there's ups and downs, highs and lows, all these other things. Starting a podcast, I started a podcast in early 2020, couldn't keep up, didn't have the time, took too much of my time, all these other things. And so there's just a lot there, but I think now I just focus on the things that give me energy and the things that I'm getting excited about. And I really want to create, I shifted my mindset. It's like, I don't want to create my life around my business. I want to create my business around my life. And I think that's where a lot of people early on, it's very hard to do because all you're doing is you're chasing growth in your business. But I think at some point you make that shift. And surprisingly, maybe not to some of you here, but surprisingly, when you start to shift that mentality, you actually start to get more exponential growth than you would think. So I think that's a really big thing, and focus on where your energy, what gives you energy, because you're willing to put more energy into that thing. And it's just like this awesome cycle that you get caught up into that just goes both ways. So that would be probably the best way I manage things and how I focus, because I really don't have a day-to-day schedule, to be honest with you. I wake up and I'm like, all right, there's a few things that kind of need to get done, but what do I want to do today? What do I like? I try to wake up in the morning and do like handwritten like journaling, or try to like write or whatever else it is, just to distill my ideas. And so I think that's a really, really big thing to lean into, is like, what gives you energy?
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I guess, maybe going a little bit more tactical in that direction. What are some of the things from like a sales channel or funnel perspective that you're focusing your energy towards? How are you acquiring customers? What are the sales channels that you really like?
So for my service agency, I think the biggest sales channel deal flow is probably still Upwork, or just even organic traffic. We really dialed in on our SEO early on, and that's been paying off, tenfold for the past like few years, and that's been awesome. Right now, for a lot of my more personal stuff like my SaaS stuff, my business coaching, and all these other things. It's mainly through content. So I have a newsletter. I'm really active on Twitter. I'm active on LinkedIn and all these other channels. So that's probably been the biggest sort of deal flow and client, inbound client flow for me. I think for service businesses, it's not hard, but it's also not easy to use things like Twitter, because I think there's a lot of people doing it. So you need to kind of have, I think that should be one channel, but I think, partnerships are really, really crucial for us, especially because I never, until about 3-4 months ago, we never did any outbound outreach for our service agency. Everything always kind of came to us one way or another, whether it was, like I said, through Upwork or through one of our partners or word of mouth or whatever that might be. That's pretty much how it usually went for us.
Nice. Yeah. Talk a little bit more about the partnership side of things. What are some of the things you look for in partners? What's worked for you from a partnerships perspective, and maybe even give an example of a good one that has shown value for your agencies.
Yeah, I think partnerships are, people think partnerships is getting like a little affiliate or passive income from that when you just refer somebody over. But I think it goes a little bit beyond that. And don't get me wrong, in the beginning, that's kind of how we looked at it too. It was just like, oh, great, we get to have, 20% revenue from them for next 12 to 24 months and all this other stuff. But once you really get into the weeds of it, partnerships go really a long way. And it's, the way I like to look at it, it's like you scratch my back, I scratch your back, and the merchant's back type of thing. Is because that partner wants to solidify themselves inside of the merchant store, whether it's like a subscription widget or an upsell thing or an email capture, whatever that might be, right? They want to basically be part of that merchant's journey, and they want to be part of the customer journey, because that's the sticky part of it. And so in order for them to, a lot of these merchants want custom work done or whatever that might be. A lot of the time, the tech piece of it, they want the agency to be somebody that they can trust to say, hey, you need that custom, because they get a lot of inbound, right? People reach out and say, hey, I'm using your app, but I need this very customized. And majority of the time, these apps don't do a lot of the work in-house. And if they do, they'll still have pieces of that work that they don't want to do. And so that's where agencies, I think, come in. And so once you build that trust with one agency to say, oh, these guys could always do this for us, you start to become this automated channel within that. So we did this with Shopify Plus as well. We never got on the Shopify Plus experts list, like the sort of the big list where the projects are minimum $30,000, $40,000. But we also had this very underlying relationship where we had couple of those agencies dropped the ball, and then Shopify reached out to us and was like, hey, can you guys handle taking on this project? It's gone through a really poor life cycle and all these other things. And the minute that we got some of these projects handled, and we brought them to the customer being satisfied and all these other things, that ended up opening up a whole different door for us, for Shopify to directly send us merchants and say, we can trust these guys, because now they're helping merchants on our platform, and they're they have solid work that they've done, and we can trust them. And once you build that trust, you open up the doors. So you can essentially create a whole inbound workaround with partners, as long as you can get that wheel rolling pretty quickly. So yeah, that's a really crucial thing for us. And then obviously it doesn't hurt to get a little bit of affiliate revenue on the back end, just for extra cash and in the bank account type of thing.
Definitely agree with you on the 1 + 1 = 3 on the partnership side.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I guess tell us a little bit more about some of the tools that you're using to run your agency on a day-to-day.
Well, yeah. So I've been a really big fan of things like Asana from very early days. To me, the tools that we primarily use are Slack for internal communications, Asana for project and task management, And then we also use for support tickets, for example, just to keep, the conversation very open amongst the team. I believe in transparency from that perspective. So, if somebody's out tomorrow, like you don't want to have a single point of failure across any of these things, right? So I think it's important to have everybody have a little bit of insight into every conversation, just so that if somebody needs to leave for a week, for a few days, or whatever else it is, somebody else could just jump in a little bit more seamlessly than to be like, something being in like someone's personal email or whatever that might be. So Slack, Asana, Zendesk for support tickets, because it kind of integrates with all the other systems. We use things like Loom. We use, Miro. We use a variety of these different tools. And I think it's just kind of figuring out what tools fit the, Google Drive, obviously, what tools kind of fit your workflow. I think the biggest thing for us was always figuring out a way to bring all of this sort of under one roof, because, with big clients and sort of like, wanting to be as transparent as possible and having minimal like unnecessary conversations about what's my project update, what's this, what's that. We always try to find a way to build like this like customer portal that brings all of these tools together. And so we did that at the beginning of this year, actually. It's been an absolute game changer for, the amount of inbound requests and different things we get. So that's something I think that's really, really powerful, is just to figure out ways that you can give your clients a little bit more like a self-serve portal for anybody to be able to, in their business, to be able to see at any point where things are at, how things are moving along, and any kind of billing requirements and anything like that.
Nice.
Awesome. That sounds great. Hopefully it'll be Puzzle soon.
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
But that's awesome. Well, I know we talked a lot about you building your agency and how you coach other people. So I think if you had to, what is one piece of advice that you have for anyone jumping into starting an agency?
I would say focus on one niche, I guess, is my best. And I know that's maybe a little bit more generic, but when I say that, is like focus on one thing that you're really good at, and don't try to more does not mean more clients. Sometimes more at an agency level means less clients, and here's why. I think for us, for example, when we started our first 2 to 3 months of our agency, we created a website that had WordPress, Magento, and Shopify as kind of the 3 pillars of like the type of clients that we wanted. Within that 2 to 3 months, we quickly realized that we did not want to do WordPress or Magento work because of a couple of different reasons. There's a lot of backend, there's a lot of security stuff, there's all this like server things going on and all this other stuff, just like a bunch of waste of resources from my opinion. So we went directly like into Shopify because we were getting a lot of people reaching out to us about Shopify. And then the other part of it is like, how can we make a big impact on that merchant's journey? And that was, when we work in Shopify, we work mainly on the front end side of things, the direct impact of a customer showing up to their store, purchasing, and then how the experience goes. With a lot of these other platforms, it's very tough to do that, because you constantly have to, one thing you build, the next thing breaks, and it's this constant like whack-a-mole thing going on. So if you're doing like, maybe you're starting a marketing agency, focus on being the best at running ads, or focus the best on being copywriting, or best at that. Because once you start doing those things and you do it really well, you build a trust with those clients that you're working with. And when you build that trust, those clients will actually come to you first, even though you might not do that work. They'll come to you first and say, do you know anybody that does this other service? Or do you know anybody that can help me with this? And that's where you can start to gauge a little bit more what maybe your next service offering could be, or how you can potentially upsell those customers. So use one level of service, or one sort of, we only started with design and development. Like we didn't do any marketing or anything like that. It wasn't until like year 2 or 3 that we said, oh, wow, so many people need marketing services. Like we should probably add that to our, to our list now that we have, we've had a couple hundred clients come through our door and all these other things. We can actually go backwards and go reach out to them and say, hey, we just started offering marketing in our agency. And I think that ends up kind of giving you that point of like upselling and different things like that. So anyone starting an agency, I would definitely say focus on one thing, do that really well, build that trust. And then from that trust, you can get a lot of referral business and a lot of upsell, because those clients will actually come to you and ask you maybe to recommend somebody, or they will, willing to take a chance on you doing it for them.
All right. Well, we will post this on YouTube. We'll post it on Twitter. We'll make sure to include contact info. So if there's any other questions that you would like to follow up with, you can reach out to any one of us. And I really want to thank Z and Akrudi and the Puzzle team. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's been really awesome speaking with you and learning about your agencies. And yeah, we'll see everyone soon.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You all.
All right. Bye guys.
Take care.
Bye.